6-1 bullet, 2.30,
Office still stands for talk? No.
Grizz came out with some freaking fire, baby. Shout out Grizz. Woo. Woo. Shout out Grizzmatically Clever with the rough draft of the other intro, baby. Damn. I told you all, just wait. You definitely got to sub to Grizz if you're not. Definitely got to sub to Grizz. What's up, Skittles? Detective Golden, ticket number 5. Kelly Miller got the ticket number 1. Damn, good evening. Ticket number 8. What's up, Tiffany? Sorry, everybody, for the late notification. I was getting stuff ready until like 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight for my upcoming trip. And this was kind of a last minute thing, so I apologize about that, but thank you for hopping in. Appreciate you. We're just going to chit chat for a little bit tonight. What's up, D. Marie? Just T, finally catching a live, huh? What's up, Katrina? Caddy, look at all them colors. Appreciate that. Midnight Radio, what's up, bro? I'd like to have you on sometime. We'll have to connect somehow. Architect for the music. Shout out Architect. Yes. Yeah, we heard about that. I got a couple little breaking news things. Nothing too much. Just a couple videos. Nothing too much. One of them is, unfortunately, the Matthew Perry thing. What's up, Dina? There it is, right there. Sub to Grizz. Let me throw his link again. Dude's amazing. He made both those intros. And the second one was just the rough draft. But it was so damn good, I had to share it with you guys anyway. Give me 1 second. Everything's going haywire here. All right, here we go. I'm still sniffly. What's up, Nicola? What's up? What's up, Devil Doll? Yeah, I'm still sniffly. What's up? What's up? Regina? Let me know how to pronounce that. What's up, Sarah Sweetness? How are you tonight? Boom. Yeah, we got a couple little breaking things. Man, can you guys believe that? Oh, what an intro. What an intro. All right, let's get switched to this breaking news real quick. Then we'll get into some of these fresh notes, old notes, and we'll just kind of hang out tonight. See what's up. Let's get to the breaking news desk.
This morning, we are breaking down several big developments that will change the future of the Delphi murders case. Yesterday, the judge appointed 2 new defense attorneys, but 13 Investigates learned the original defense team filed a new motion as well yesterday, fighting to stay on the case. But the judge ordered their other filings this week stricken from the record. At the start of yesterday, Richard Allen had no defense counsel. Now it seems he might have 4 separate attorneys. So what happens next? And what could this mean for Richard Allen's defense? Our Bob Siegel digs deeper into these questions.
Allen's original defense team has made it very clear they are not going away without a fight. They claim Judge Francis Gall ambushed them with an ultimatum, either step down as Richard Allen's defense attorneys or be humiliated in court before she disqualified them from the case. They say the judge's claim that the attorneys engaged in gross negligence is unfounded, and they say they offered verbally to step aside involuntarily and under pressure.
This is very unusual to see these types of filings. I've never seen an attorney just push off the case like this and them, pushing back.
Ben Jaffe is a longtime defense attorney, and he says if both Richard Allen and his original attorneys want to keep working together, as the defense claims, it's unclear whether removing those public defenders without a hearing is in the defendant's best interest.
There's likely a feeling on his part that these attorneys are being removed because they're fighting so hard for him. Whether that's the case or not, I'm certain Mr. Allen has internalized that idea, and it would probably be hard for him to accept that new attorney is going to do things the same way.
Appointing new public defenders when the original defense team feels they were bullied into stepping down against their will, well, that also means we will likely see the judge's decision legally challenged.
And so I wouldn't be shocked to see a filing of some sort with the higher court.
What's up, Linda?
Exactly what court would hear that challenge?
This is so unusual. I don't even know where you would begin to file that sort of thing.
Even the state's Public Defenders Council told 13 Investigates it isn't sure what court would address the chaos now taking place, because it's pretty much unheard of. The State Court of Appeals, even the state Supreme Court, could be called on to settle the unusual issues now being decided in Delphi.
What a frickin' what a railroad. What the fuck is going on, right?
Even the state Supreme Court could be called on to settle the unusual issues now being decided in Delphi.
What the hell
Bob
is
Siegel,
going on?
13 News.
Richard Allen's next hearing is scheduled for this Tuesday. Cameras will not be allowed in the courtroom, but we expect to learn a new date for the trial.
Just into CNN, very sad news. Actor Matthew Perry has died at the age of 54. The Los Angeles Times, quoting law enforcement sources, is reporting the Friends star was found dead today in a hot tub at his Los Angeles home. The LA Times reports its sources
In a hot tub.
Condition of anonymity because the investigation was ongoing, did not cite a cause of death, but
In
said
a
there
hot
was no
tub.
sign of foul play.
What is it with hot
Perry
tubs
appeared
and
in countless other
bathtubs?
TV shows, but is best known for his role of Chandler in Friends. The sitcom ran for 10 seasons. Perry appeared in every episode. His battle with alcohol and drugs, specifically painkillers, was well known, and he wrote about his addiction in his memoir that he titled Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, including that he went to rehab. more than 60 times.
60
CNN's Camila Bernal is in Los Angeles. Camila, what more do we know
Whoa!
about Matthew Perry's death?
60
Hey,
times?
Pam, very few details here, but as you mentioned, the LA Times is saying that this was an apparent drowning accident at his LA home. This appears to have happened today. We have reached out
Over
to Matthew
60
Perry's
times?
team. We also reached out to the LAPD. They have not gotten back to us, but the LA Times is saying there is no apparent foul play in this incident. Unfortunately, we are waiting to get that confirmation from LAPD and from Matthew Perry's team there. Unfortunately, this is obviously extremely heartbreaking for the Hollywood community and really for the world that watched Friends. This was such a great show. Matthew Perry was obviously Chandler Bing. He made so many of us laugh for so many seasons, so many episodes. You know, just watching the reunion episode was also just nice to see the whole team, to see the gang there. Unfortunately, this is
What's up,
the news
Kentucky
that we're
girl?
getting today. We'll have to wait for that confirmation. And as you mentioned, Matthew Perry was very open about his struggles with addiction. And so as of now, the LA Times is also saying no foul play suspected. But again, we have to wait for a lot of those details, Pam.
We do. And so many of us know him from Friends. And then he really reemerged in a big way when his memoir came out, and he made the rounds with interviews talking about his struggles when he was on Friends, talking about how his weight would fluctuate because of his addiction to alcohol and drugs. And he talked
Thank
about
you for
how
the
he
kind
went
words,
to AA
Smiley.
meetings thousands of times and went to rehab as well many times, and that he was finally able to break the
Tiffany, it said that in a book he admitted to going into rehab over 60 times.
cycle of addiction. Tell us more about what we know about Matthew Perry from his memoir, those interviews he did, as we learn of his untimely death at the age of 54, according to the LA Times.
This is my addiction, coffee. That's my damn addiction.
Found in a hot tub, dead. Again, learning more circumstances surrounding his death, waiting for police
Coffee
to
will be the
provide more
death of
details.
me.
But tell us a little bit more about his background, if you would, Camila.
Yeah, so it was nice to hear directly from him. You mentioned the
Man.
memoir. He did a lot of interviews as well as he was promoting his book, and he was willing to speak about everything that happened to him. He would get extremely emotional as he talked about his struggles and going in and out of rehab, as you mentioned, and
What's up,
what
Lola?
he went through, even as he was filming Friends, because of course this was sort of the biggest show of his career. But he spoke about going through those struggles even during the taping
man, my
of Friends
sinuses.
and going through these episodes and still showing up, right? And still making us laugh and still just making everybody happy. And it was just such a good show, right? And he brought such a fun aspect to the show with his jokes, with his personality. So it was interesting to see both sides, right? The person that he played on Friends, but also the person that was struggling with this addiction behind closed doors. And so I think anybody that was around in the 90s or that grew up in the 90s watched Chandler Bing and was excited to see him sort of overcome that addiction. Again, we have to wait to confirm the foul play. That's what the LA Times is saying, that right now that is not the case. So we'll just have to wait on those details from law enforcement, but it is a long career, and of course, one that's very well known for his role in Friends.
Yeah, you know, Friends was his biggest claim to fame, but he starred and guest starred in countless other TV shows over the year, just to name a few of them. Boys Will Be Boys, Growing Pains, Silver Spoons, Charles in Charge, The West Wing, Scrubs, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Go On, The Odd Couple, and many more.
What's up,
and as you
Snap?
pointed out, he recently resurfaced as well in the Friends reunion that I know a lot of Friends fans were eagerly awaiting and watching.
Yeah, and on social media, you know, there was a lot of talk about the reunion and how he looked and the way that he spoke during the reunion. There were a lot of questions about what he was going through.
Why? What happened?
But he came out and said, look, I'm okay. I'm in a good place. So it's unclear exactly how he was at the moment.
How he
or
looked at the
just
reunion.
Recently, you know, last we heard, he did speak out saying that he was fine. But we have to wait.
What, they had like a reunion last week or something? They had a reunion show last week and he was telling everybody he was fine? Two years ago. What are they talking about? The reunion months back? I just see one from like 2 years ago. Why? What did he look like? He was a mess or something? What the?
To probably hear from his team to really figure out what he was going through, if he was going through anything at the moment, or as the LA Times is saying, this appears to have been an accident.
Yeah, no foul play, according to the LA Times. And again, he spoke just last year, I believe it was, about the fact that he had struggled with addiction, that he had broken that cycle of addiction through a lot of hard work over many years. And, you know, when you look at his character in Friends, Chandler, it was such a fan favorite, right? I mean, you know.
What, it was alcoholism or something? I know he had a problem with prescription medication or whatever, but for real? Holy crap. Yeah, Lola, we have people in here that actually have been through things, so yeah, we don't use those words here. I'm surprised, because you guys have always been in the show. I don't understand how people forget. I don't know. Oh well, sometimes people forget, right? All right, we'll get back to the topic now. That was the breaking news. Sometimes I forget too. All right, we're going to get into the fresh notes, old notes part of the show. And where was it? Where's that Court TV episode? Oh, where'd it go? Hold on 1 second. Where is it? I just had it. There it is. Oh. Okay. So last time we were talking fresh notes, old notes. We were talking about the warrants. We were talking about the PCA. We were talking about the search warrants. Even in the last couple shows, we were talking about the search warrants. I was saying that we did have a video saved from Court TV when the search warrant was performed on his home. his residence, his apartment. So as we kind of go through these old episodes, we're going to kind of dig into it, look into it. We kind of you kind of find little bits of information here and there that we just might have missed when we watched this. This was streamed all the way back January 18th. So this is the Court TV episode after they did the search on his apartment in Washington.
New evidence
Is it going to be pastel, Vinny?
revealed in the murders of college students
Thank you,
Ethan,
everybody, for hanging out.
Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee as a search warrant is unsealed. We have all the details of what was found inside the apartment of the accused mass murderer. And tonight, we'll go through the evidence piece by piece with our own experts. Will prosecutors be able to connect the defendant to the scene of the crime?
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us here on Closing Arguments. The case in Idaho, this is not a case with direct evidence. There is no eyewitness to the actual murders. There's a witness who sees someone afterwards, but doesn't witness the actual murders. There's no video of the murders, and there's no confession. So what do we have? We've got video. We've got video of the suspect's car.
What's up, Deborah?
Circling around the area outside of that house, going back and forth. We've got that car visiting before the murders as well. So the white Elantra and the video of the white Elantra, crucial piece of circumstantial evidence for prosecutors to try to get that suspect from Pullman, Washington into Moscow, Idaho. Second crucial piece, those cell phone pings. Pinging everywhere. Those cell phone pings, sometimes coinciding with the video, other times pinging when there is no video, and sometimes we have video when there are no pings. But you put these pieces together, it's like a puzzle. Circumstantial evidence. How many times have you heard a prosecutor talk about the pieces of the puzzle that you've got to put together to prove the case? So the cell phone, again, is circumstantial evidence. It can prove that someone is there or the cell phone is there. And then you're gonna say, well, the cell phone's there, and then he's there, and we see his car there. So you put all of that together, you're like, okay, now all of a sudden you've got this defendant not home in his apartment, but you've got him out of his apartment. You've got him in Moscow. You've got him right next to the home where the 4 college students were murdered. So what else do you need?
Apparently nothing.
You can get him outside the house, right? So that's important to get him in the neighborhood. It's a college town. You know, there's a lot of people moving around, people seeing things, people, driving in, driving out for different reasons. But he's from Pullman, Washington. Does he have a reason to be outside the house? Now, something we've learned.
This is probably a bad idea. Oh, this is probably a bad idea. This is probably a bad idea. This is not good. This is not good. Because, how did I miss this? He's not allowed outside of the house?
In the neighborhood. It's a college town. There's a lot of people moving around, people seeing things, people, driving in, driving out for different reasons. But he's from Pullman, Washington. Does he have a reason to be outside the house?
He's from across the country, isn't he, Vinny? Hold on. I gotta be precise. Okay. I gotta be precise. I don't want to. I don't want to misinform. Okay. This man is 15 minutes away. What the hell reason does he have to be over there in Moscow? Should he even be let outside of the house? 15 damn minutes, man. When if you look around, okay, you look around, right? You look around. You look around. What? Where else you gonna go? I'm just saying. Look around. You gonna go to Busby? You gonna go to Shawnee or maybe Colfax or Palouse or Howell? Or what about Cornwall or Nora? Johnson? What the? Where else you gonna go? Oh, hell no. I just had to be precise. I'm sorry. I didn't want to misinform. 15 minutes.
Where the 4 college students were murdered.
Oh, my Lord.
So what else do you need?
Oh, my Lord.
You can get him outside the house, right? So that's important to get him in the neighborhood. It's a college town. You know, there's a lot of people moving around, people seeing things, people
He's from
driving in, driving out for different reasons.
He's
from Pullman, Washington. Does he have a reason to be outside the house?
No, he doesn't.
Now, something we've learned, 2 people survived who were inside the house. We know there was a DoorDash delivery as well. So you now have to get this defendant inside that house. And how do you do that? How do you prove to this jury that he's actually inside the home? Again, more circumstantial evidence of circumstances that say, okay, you put it together, that would put him there. And I think what was unsealed today in a search warrant could lead investigators there, could get the prosecution there, could get the jury there.
Ooh. It's a bold statement. That's a bold statement. We're watching the Court TV episode that was streamed on January 18th, 2023. And this was the episode from Court TV after they performed the search of Kohberger's Pullman, Washington apartment. Again, he's from Pullman. Did he deserve... I should make that a poll question. Did he deserve to leave the house?
To be convinced that, yeah, this defendant, this suspect, was inside that home and has a connection to these victims. So today, an unsealing of a search warrant, and part of that is a list of the items that were actually seized. So let's take a look at some of these items. We begin with one nitrite type black glove. Black glove. That's kind of like...
Oh, this is going to be entertaining. I'm sorry. Vinny. Oh my. Vinny, it's almost like you were Nancy Grace before Nancy Grace. I was so sucked in. This is January 18th, everybody. This was during the time period when I was sucked in to the MSM. It was. Yeah, it wasn't until February that I really started to go, man, some of this shit just don't make any sense. So I can see how I didn't notice it before. Damn, Vinny, watch, he's gonna tear up this fucking this list here. Watch.
Unsealing of a search warrant, and part of that is a list of the items that were actually
manure exclamation point.
seized. So let's take a look at some of these items. We begin with one nitrite type black glove.
Oh,
black glove.
super
That's
sleuth.
Kind of like A surgical glove? I mean, if you're going to commit a murder, that's something you would certainly
Oh yeah.
want. You've got a Walmart receipt with one Dickies tag. We don't know what's on the receipt, but is he buying something that could be connected to all of this? 2 Marshall's receipts. Again, we don't know what's on the receipt, but investigators do.
Yeah.
This one is fascinating. A dust container from a Bissell Power Force vacuum. Again, inside the suspect's home. Was he cleaning anything up? What would be inside that vacuum?
He probably used it to clean his car.
8 possible hair strands.
Maybe.
Whose hair? Whose hair?
Ooh.
Will they
Maybe it's his. I don't know.
be able to match someone to these hair strands?
I don't know, Vinny.
And could they possibly match it to one of the victims?
Right?
There
You
would
know what
be
I'm saying?
no innocent
Fascinating.
reason for one of the victim's strands of hair to be in his apartment, would there? A Fire TV stick with a cord and plug. This one, I don't have a Fire TV stick, but my understanding is you can store information on there. You can go shopping on Amazon. There's other things you can do with it. Maybe you can look
Yeah, you can research how to unalive people too, Vinny.
up news reports as well. I don't know what information they'll be able to get from that, but seems like it's significant. This one, wow, one possible animal hair strand.
Wow.
Did he have a pet? One of the victims had a pet. One possible hair, another possible hair, and another possible hair.
Boom, boom, boom.
If any of these match those victims, huge for the prosecution. Computer tower, we know the age we live in. There's so much potential information from a computer tower. What are you searching? What are you looking at? What are you reading?
Yeah.
How about social media?
I know. You were looking at how to forget to shut your phone off, drive over downtown Pullman, then over to downtown Moscow. Make sure you get caught on a whole bunch of surveillance cameras, and then do a Joe Dirt pull-up for the best game time winning shot you ever did in your life, and then go back to Joe Dirt afterwards. And then after you do that, then I bet you searched up how to go back to the... No, you searched up how your phone can utilize the same towers. Yes, how your phone can utilize the same tower. That's difficult. That takes a lot of research, especially the way that you pulled up to do the crime. It's no wonder you got away with it and nobody even knew how you left the property. Wow. God.
What pictures are you browsing? Where are you? When are you there? When are you in your apartment? When are you not there? Unbelievable information from a computer. Then we've got 3 more things. A collection of a dark red spot collected without testing. Red spot, is it blood? Whose blood is it? 2 cuttings from an uncased pillow of reddish brown stain. The larger stain has been tested. We don't know the results. 2 top and bottom mattress cover packaged separately, both labeled C, multiple stains. What are the stains? Who are they connected to?
Whoa, I don't know. Damn, he's really reading into this fucking document, isn't he? Oh my Lord, this is crazy.
I'm telling you, folks, this could be enormous for the prosecution. They already have great evidence, but you don't know what any particular jurors their own concept of what a reasonable doubt is. And if they can't put the defendant inside that house, that could be the reasonable doubt for one or more jurors. So it's significant. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter. Not in Idaho tonight, but right here on set. Great to see you, Chandler.
Tonight,
and
inside.
Warm. Exactly. So tell us more about these documents that
Hindsight is always 2020, you know? Jeez.
that were unsealed today.
Yeah,
This is
You know, I'm glad that if anybody goes like we're doing 9 months ago, I'm glad that I don't have to. I would hate. Oh, I would hate. Man. You just gotta know. That's all. You just gotta know.
big.
It was huge, Vinny, because remember last week on your show, I'm telling you about the
What's up,
order
Crystal?
to seal this affidavit of the apartment, and we were speculating what all it could reveal to us that they were looking for inside the apartment, and now we have our hands on most of it. And the reason they unsealed this yesterday, according to the file stamp, is because it's a different state, Washington State, Whitman County, where his apartment is, in Moscow. They cited the Moscow affidavit, the arrest affidavit, being so extensive, 18 pages, that this really didn't. It's pretty much known what is in this affidavit. So they released it, and as it's unsealed, we learned that they were looking on December 30th, where we have video of the Washington State University Police Department searching the apartment on the second floor, Unit 201, taking boxes out from that apartment, spending time doing that at the request of Moscow Police Department, looking for, like what you said, trace evidence. Cell phone, other cell phones, computers, digital towers, things like that. But now, I told you about the first 18 pages. This affidavit goes page 19 through 31. So here's some things that stick out to me that we maybe didn't know. So on page 19, where it picks up with something new, it says the King Road residence contained a significant amount of blood from the victims, including spatter and cast off, which is the bloodstain pattern.
Right there. That's why the coroner said it was messy. If it was messy, how? How is there not his DNA there? How is there no call? Because unconscious again? Made a video about it. Why would it be called unconscious? Especially if it was like this inside. And I'm sorry, there's a smell, okay? You're gonna know.
Resulting from blood drops released from an object, a murder weapon, due to its motion, which, based on the training of this officer, makes it likely that this evidence was transferred onto Kohlberger's person, his clothing, or his shoes. So that's why we're seeing these items seized of clothes at his home, the receipts of clothes purchased possibly that he may have worn. Dickies, they make bibs that covers most of your body, right? That could have been what he purchased. So they're looking for, and we knew it was a bloody crime scene, right? I showed you what we presumed to be blood leaking out the walls outside.
Yeah, shocking.
So a couple other things that stood out to me in this affidavit. So we knew that he was a student there, but we didn't know for sure, based on his cross-country trip to Pennsylvania with his dad, if he intended to do the spring semester, return to school. That's a long drive.
Right.
So this affidavit does say that he intended to return.
He was going to stay.
He was going to stay.
He was going to stay right in Washington.
For the next semester, this is what this affidavit reads. Also revealing to me, Vinny, they did not find a murder weapon in this apartment. And with the
intended to return. Why not, right?
gag order, we don't know if they found it. They wouldn't tell us, but we can know for sure that at the time this search warrant was written, they didn't have it, and then they didn't seize it there. They didn't find it. So that's still missing. We knew he lived alone, but this confirms he lived alone. I was at that apartment building knocking on neighbors' doors. We pretty much knew that. And you mentioned pet hair. There's no mention of a pet from any of the neighbors I talked to. And I think there'd be more than just one hair if there was actually a pet living
If there was a pet there, and there'd be a pet, right? I mean, when he's arrested or there'd be a pet in that room in that apartment.
Exactly. So, and then something else, this search warrant also requests to search his office on campus. His apartment's on campus too, but at the criminology building. I've been there and did some sleuthing. We went inside the building. We tried to find his office, Vinny. It's in the basement, but the outer door was locked, but you could see kind of through where the students' offices would be located. So they searched that, but this doesn't reveal anything that they seized from that search in this particular unsealed document. And then finally, I know we talked about this last week. I was interested to see if this mentioned or seized any shoes because of that latent footprint or shoe print that was found at the crime scene. Were they looking for him to have that style of shoe? It's not specifically mentioned in here, and they didn't seize, obviously, any shoes.
Yeah. I mean, if they saw a shoe that matched, they would have seized it. And unless their shoes were found somewhere else, which I couldn't imagine, or were they the shoes that he was wearing when he was arrested? True. Shoes could be where the murder weapon is as well.
Exactly.
You know, which could be pretty much anywhere.
And what was bought on the receipts or at the stores.
Exactly. So those receipts are crucial. And they know what's on the receipt, but we don't know what's on the receipt. So, you know, you look at this. What are your thoughts about the Fire Stick and the TV? That was the only one that's a little confusing.
I don't have one of those either, but I hear that you can do many things with this. Search the internet with it, you know, watch things, store things with it. Even illegal things I've researched, maybe you can get download.
Right.
I'm not sure, but that's interesting. Who knows what they could find?
How hard is it to do a Google search on what a Fire Stick can do? It was that easy. Because I don't have one either. But a Fire Stick is a device that lets you stream over 1 million movies and episodes, live sports, music, and more. All you need is a TV with an HDMI port and an internet connection, and you'll get access to popular streaming services. Oh, there's videos on how to use it. Beginner's guide. Everything you need to know. You can install apps, play games, watch content from the internet. Pretty neat. If you want to check out everything you can do with the Fire Stick, here you go. It's pretty easy. All right, back to the episode.
On that, and as we know, they can also find deleted things on a lot of these electronics as well.
Which, again, I mean, he's studying this stuff. He's probably going to try to cover his tracks, but you know, everything we're looking at, he didn't do the greatest job. If in fact he is the killer here, because everything seems to be pointing in that direction. And it all started with the video, the cell phone, and now we'll see what they were able to get. It'll be interesting to see if there's any blood or hair that is connected to any of the victims that could have been brought back from the scene. All right, Chanley, great job. It's great that she can be warm tonight, and we will speak again. When we come back, folks, we are going to go through this evidence piece by piece with our experts, our forensic experts, our investigators, to get a better idea of what it could actually lead to, what it could mean, and again, answer the ultimate question. Could it put this defendant in contact with one or more of the victims? We've got all that, plus coming up next hour.
Breaking news in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In less than 20...
We usually go to Idaho a lot, like for Dutch Bros or Target. So like knowing it was just like right down the road, like 10 minutes, that I go there like once or twice a week, it like made me like less willing to go out there. Like I would have to like go out there with somebody. I think he like actually lives really close to my apartment, so that even felt like even more scary.
Yeah, that's really scary when an accused mass murderer lives close to your apartment. Man, that
Right, and they don't even give you a profile or a plate or a picture or even a description or a reward. No shit, Vinny.
everyone was looking for. Well, now he's in custody, and today the search warrant and the probable cause affidavit attached to that search warrant and the items seized from his apartment was unsealed. Unsealed. So I want to go through these pieces of evidence with my experts. Let me bring in my guests.
Look at that
Joining
grin.
me tonight
Look at the grin.
in Columbia, South Carolina. Retired medical examiner, forensic pathologist, former law enforcement officer, Dr. Michelle Dupree. We're just connecting up with her in just a second. In Oceanside, New York, Professor Emeritus of Forensic Science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Dr. Lawrence Kobolinski. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen. Great to have you both here. Dr. Dupree will be with us in just a second. Let me begin with the first three items on the list. You've got one nitrite-type black glove,
That's
one
damning.
Walmart receipt with one Dickies tag, two Marshall's receipts, and then I want to remind everyone what's in this probable cause affidavit. As Chanley reported to us, the King Road residence contained a significant amount of blood from the victims, including spatter and cast-off blood-stained pattern resulting from blood drops released from an object due to its motion, which, based on my training, makes it likely that this evidence was transferred to the defendant's person, clothing or shoes. Also, the detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans type shoe sole just outside the door of Dylan's bedroom located on the second floor. All right, Dr. Kobolinski, let's begin with that black glove. This, again, is not found at the scene, but is found, and Dr. Dupree is with us. Great to see you. And this is not found at the scene, Dr. K, but it's found at the apartment of the suspect. What could possibly be on that black nitrate glove, and how difficult would it be to get evidence from it? I'm not hearing Dr. K. Is he muted? Are we muted? We're checking on that.
Just
1 second.
Go to somebody else, Vinny. Damn, man.
He's back. We got you.
Okay, I'm back.
Vinny,
I think that the glove is not a nitrite glove. It's a nitrile glove. And its significance is not really clear. There may very well be some evidence on it. It'll be chemically tested. It'll be looked at with all kinds of different lighting systems to see if there are anything obvious, any stains, any kind of chemicals. I'm really not sure that it's that crucial a piece of evidence, to be honest with you. Although we know that the killer was wearing gloves at the time that this was done. But there's nothing to compare, though, because we do not have the evidence from the crime scene.
Jason Jensen, Walmart receipt, two Marshall's receipts, perhaps for clothing. We know he was clad in black that night. Might be able to put two and two together here.
Right. If he purchased these clothes in order to commit a crime, they're hoping that they can go back to these particular stores, see any surveillance footage to see exactly what he bought. If it's all black attire, it's kind of self-explanatory. He wanted to be able to move in the dark of night.
And we know that Dylan, the witness, saw the killer clad in black. All right, let's get to some more of these items that were seized from the apartment. A dust container from a Bissell Power Force vacuum, 8 possible hair strands, 1 Fire TV stick with a cord and plug, 1 possible animal hair strand, 3 more possible hair strands. Don't forget that Murphy, Kaylee's dog, was in the room when police responded to the house on Sunday around noon. We've got there you see Murphy in the background there. So Murphy was at the scene. Dr. Michelle Dupree, let's start with the human hair. What are your thoughts about it looks like 11 possible strands of hair. What can be done with that?
Those actual hair strands can be checked for DNA and checked against the victims as well as the alleged suspect.
And is it definitive? You have a hair strand. That's it. That's all you need.
If you have the end of the hair strand, you may test that for DNA, and that would be definitive.
What if you don't have the end?
It's much more difficult. You can test for likenesses and consistent with, but it's not necessarily definitive.
Dr. K, what do you think about this animal hair? What can we do with that?
It could be very significant. You talk to any pet owner, and they will tell you that part of their pet is on their clothing. I look at my jacket right now. I probably have my cat's hair all over me. It clings, static electricity. There's a lot of literature on DNA analysis of various domesticated animals. People often want their animals, to be proven to be,
I don't know. I've had pets rub up on me and they don't just leave one hair. I mean, that shit's all over the place sometimes, whether it's a cat or a puppy. That shit's all over the place sometimes. I'm surprised.
The right breed makes it worth a lot more. So, there's a lot of DNA work, and, clearly if you find a dog hair, amongst that evidence that was just collected, and it matches DNA-wise the hair of Murphy, that puts him at the scene.
That devastating. I mean, could it come down to one dog hair for this jury? Amazing. All right,
This is crazy. Man, they were just spinning this shit so hard. I mean, it's no wonder we were all sucked in. It's no wonder. Damn, they were spinning this shit hard. We didn't know any better.
Let me ask you, Jason Jensen, about this
January
Fire Stick, this Fire TV stick with a cord and plug. What type of information you think?
This is just a couple weeks after the arrest, and this is just the Pullman, Washington apartment search. There was a whole bunch of other stuff before that in the previous couple weeks. It's no wonder we all thought this shit, like, damn, we're just giving spoon-fed all this shit. It's no wonder. But then when we start really like going, wait a minute, huh? It just don't make any sense.
Think they could garner there?
A Fire Stick will actually have apps for your TV that you're using, and sometimes you can have browser history on it, and you can also use it as a flash drive because it has 8 gigabytes of memory. So oftentimes if I'm in a pinch, I'll use any kind of device that has a USB port to transfer a file. So it's entirely possible that he hides specific files like photo images or something like that on the Fire Stick. So it's worth collecting, if nothing else, just to rule out the possibilities.
What's up,
Dr.
Jeb?
Michelle Dupree, your thoughts about the dust container from the vacuum at the suspect's apartment?
Well, this is very interesting because there's something called Locard's theory of exchange. And what that means is any person coming into the crime scene brings something with them from their home, their car, their yard, but they also take something with them when they leave that crime scene. And so analyzing that dust is going to give us possibly some trace evidence that can be linked back to the suspect, to his house, to his car, or whatever.
Dr. K, how difficult will it be to go through I've never seen this before, but a dust container from a vacuum?
Oh, it's hard. It's done under magnification. Sometimes microscopes have to be used. But yeah, trace evidence is very important. And if they do find something that links to the crime scene, again, you've got very, very important evidence there. In fact, crime scene people actually
Yeah,
use
if.
handheld vacuums to go through a scene to pick up trace evidence. So here it's done already. He's left it for us.
And I wonder if the car, I'm sure the car must have been cleaned out, and I wonder if he used this for the car, for his room afterwards. All right, let's take a look at this one now. The computer tower, to me, that could be a treasure trove. The application for the search warrant, they were asking or looking for any images, digital or on paper, or of any other format which show Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, BF, one of the roommates, and/or DM, or the 1122 King Road house and/or surrounding neighborhood. They also were looking for data compilations, whether digital, electronic, showing an interest in or planning of murder, violent assault, stabbing, and/or cutting of people. Data compilations showing details of the crime scene house, its location, or information about any of the victims. Jason, again, this is another very significant potential source for information.
Oh, yeah. Either before the crime or after the crime. It's good for both, because if he's interested in how to dispose of a body or something like that, like the Brian Walsh situation, that could be in part of his search memory. If he's had social media contacts with any of the victims, which we know in...
I'm going to be honest. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that has a search history like Brian Walsh. Because that dude just straight up, I don't know. I'm going to search on a kid's tablet and they're not going to catch me. Like, straight up search exact questions. It's like, whoa, dude. Whoa.
In recent reportings that there's supposedly some kind of contact that he had with one of the victims multiple times sliding into the DM is what they keep saying. So if he's had any contacts with the victims, if he's searching for himself afterwards, like he's obsessed, any new news about the killer, it's all circumstantial, suggesting that he's got something to be concerned over.
Absolutely. We're just about out of time, but Dr. K, the dark red spot, the two cuttings from the pillow, the mattress cover packaged separately with multiple stains. How would the blood of the victims potentially end up in his apartment?
Well, he may have transferred blood from his body or his clothing or somehow into his apartment. And maybe got onto his pillow and his mattress cover. It's really hard to say, but the main thing is it's very simple to test and determine whose blood it is, if it's blood.
And again,
and if that links to a victim, that's you're home free.
It's game over. That's game over. So they've got chances with the potential for blood, hair, plus all that digital evidence. Dr. Michelle Dupree, Dr. Kobylinski, Jason Jensen, thank you all
so it's now been 24 hours since that.
All right, we watched that yesterday. Good night. Yeah, I'm just hanging out for a little bit tonight with you guys. I figured I'd just hop on for a little bit and hang out with you. Oh, I'm muted? I'm muted? Since the 80s? No, the trolls ain't confident enough to speak up because they don't know what to say after I come back to them. So they just like to report the comments, you know, because They don't want to stand up and speak up. You know what I mean? It's all good. Hey, I'm sorry you met your match. All right, here we go. This is, let me see. This is from January 9th. So this is a week before what we just watched. Now, the other episode of the Fresh Notes, Old Notes, we watched a very interesting episode that was right after the crime took place. This one is going to be one shortly after the arrest and the PCA came out. This is a News Nation special. So you're going to see the stops in Indiana, yada, yada, yada. You're going to see all of this stuff. This is before the Pullman, Washington stuff. This is going to be interesting, too. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. And I have a feeling we'll be pausing and rewinding a little more on this one. The other one, it was just like, what are you going to do with it, you know? So much. It's crazy when you watch it now and you're like, damn, they were spinning it hard. They did a great job too.
Tonight, an arrest has reportedly been made in the quadruple stabbing death of 4 college students.
2,500 miles from Moscow, Idaho, the twist that no one saw coming.
We have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
And the chilling revelation that a criminology student may just be one of the most sought-after criminals.
I looked at the picture and I couldn't believe who it was. It was Brian Kohberger.
But this mystery is just starting to unravel.
I said early on that we're not going to let any stone go unturned, and I meant that.
And the dots are just starting to connect.
He was always showing up a little late, and he told me he's fascinating on what he's doing and stuff like that.
Tonight, what led investigators across the country
hours, days,
to Brian Kohberger's front door? And what could bring the families of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan one step closer to a conviction.
There's going to be somebody there looking him in the face and letting him know that this isn't going away anytime soon.
A News Nation special report, Idaho Murder Mystery.
This is just the beginning.
Starts right now.
Yeah. Lola, this is part of the Fresh Notes, Old Notes stuff. We're kind of going back into some of the old stuff. I spent a few hours a couple weeks ago kind of going from 2,000 videos to 200, just certain things that I wanted to show and kind of go back through again and look at it in a different perspective since it's been so long since we watched these. You know, it's kind of interesting because we've kind of picked out little teeny things out of each one of them. Nothing really much on that last one. I don't know what you're going to pick out of that. But especially this last News Nation episode that we did on the last one. A few interesting things that forgot about or didn't even realize had missed it. So this one's going to be interesting. But again, this is a week after, a week and a half after the arrest. A week after, no, not even a week after the PCA got released. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting episode here.
Good evening, I'm Brian Entin, live from outside the jail in Moscow, Idaho for this News Nation special report. For more than a month now, I have been here as this town and really the world was trying to make sense of what happened inside the home where 4 college students were brutally murdered. At the time, we did not know a lot. Some worried that this case would never be solved. But this past week, so much has happened. A suspect charged, and with that, an arrest document that laid out how police connected Brian Kohberger to this crime. Tonight, we are taking you through these major developments step by step, the facts of the case and what we still don't know. We're going to dive into the forensics, the DNA, the cell phone data, and how this could all lead to a conviction. And we are going to remain centered on the victims through.
Right, especially with how long it could be, you know, until there's even a trial, you know? Like, how long could it be? So sad, you know, because it's about the victims, man. I don't know.
Throughout, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mo.
You know, with all these questions, the anniversary is going to be coming up, and with all these questions about this case, you know, how can anybody in the community feel confident that they have the right person in custody? Which is my opinion, though, but how?
Logan,
it's just me.
Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Because at the end of the day, really, it is all about them, their families, their grief, and justice. I'm going to be joined by Kaylee's sister, Olivia. She is speaking out for the first time since the arrest was made, and we thank her very much for joining us tonight. But first, so many new details from a single document, changing almost everything we thought we knew about what happened on November 13th.
It seems likely that maybe they were sleeping.
That was the narrative about the 4 college students killed in the King Road home that we heard for weeks. But the new arrest affidavit paints a very different story. A night that had everyone in their rooms or asleep much later, at 4 a.m., except for Xana, who ordered food on DoorDash. After that, a surviving roommate notes a series of sounds that woke her up. What she thought was Kaylee playing with her dog. The words, "There's someone here," crying from Xana's room, and a male voice saying something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." And then the most shocking of them all. According to the affidavit, the surviving roommate opens the door and sees what appears to be the killer, clad in black clothing with a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose, walking towards her. She describes him as not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows, and stood in a frozen shock phase as he walked past her and back out the sliding glass door. She then locked herself in her room. 911 was not called until 11:58 that morning.
But still, this interesting question of she didn't call the police.
But it raises a question as what was happening in that period of time?
Obviously, you'd like to call right away so you can have an immediate response and get on it. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world.
Investigators at the scene found 2 traces of a possible suspect, a shoe print just outside the door of the surviving roommate's bedroom, and a knife sheath that had K-Bar and USMC on it. A single source of male DNA was also found on the button snap.
A very subtle finding, if you will, on the sheet to find his connection there, find the DNA. And I think.
Well, isn't it weird that the shoe print wasn't even noticed the first walkthrough until they used that special light? If the shoe print was part of the crime scene, what'd they do? Get out the Resolve carpet cleaner and clean up blood off of a carpet before they left? Hey, you got any Resolve in the counters? A scrub brush? Resolve doesn't even get root beer out of the carpet. It's not going to get blood. What are they going to do? Get a Bissell out? Oh, the Bissell came with. Oh, the Bissell came with. Okay.
I think that's the money.
As investigators scoured the
Shout
neighborhood for
out
cameras and
Bissell.
clues, a car stuck
Damn.
out, the white Hyundai Elantra. It's the same car
Yeah.
investigators.
I had like a Ghostbusters backpack, you know, you had the hose and then he could just like whip it out and just right? And then right as they're walking out the door, like oh, all right, we're good. Right? But then how did they but what about the Dickies suit? How does that? I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. I still got to think about that one.
Asked for information about over and over
Bissell.
again, insisting they wanted
Shout
to
out
speak to
Bissell.
the occupants inside.
Do you believe that the killer was in that car?
We think that they were in the immediate area of the house of the residents.
What we didn't know at the time was investigators knew it was Brian Kohberger's car by November 29th.
He was under surveillance, I think, from the time that they realized that this is going to be where the evidence is leading them to.
On December 23rd, they got a search warrant for his cell phone records.
The data that is generated by a cell phone is quite alarming.
Those records put Kohberger near the crime scene at least 12 times before the murders. It's also in the area in the early morning hours of the crime and right after. Investigators believe the phone may have been turned off or in airplane mode in between. We believe that he fled the scene according to the probable cause affidavit. They described the route that they believe he took based on surveillance video and just a knowledge of the area. This is the house where the murders happened. We believe he came out the back door and then left in this direction. You can see on this map, police say Kohberger went way out of the way to get back to his home in Pullman, going down a country road and making it to his apartment around 5:30 a.m. 4.5 hours later, Kohberger's phone is near the Moscow house again from 9:12 to 9:21 a.m. and back home in Pullman by about 9:32. Later that day, there is another 3-hour window where the phone was out of service again. Investigators say that is consistent with the same location as the phone after the murders, perhaps retracing his steps one last time. And between November 29th and November 23rd, authorities surveilled Kohberger's car using license plate readers and cameras. And they got even more information during 2 traffic stops in Indiana on December 15th, when Kohberger and his father were pulled over for minor infractions.
Where are you headed? Well, we coming from WSU.
When investigators confirmed Kohberger's car was in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, things escalated. On December 27th, agents recovered trash from the Kohberger family home and sent it to the Idaho State Crime Lab for testing. It came back as a profile matching the DNA of Kohberger's biological father, a match for the DNA left on the knife sheath.
They have his DNA at the crime scene. They have his car in and around the crime scene. They have his phone not active around the crime scene. So all of those things work to put him there. But the essential question really is why?
Yeah, they sure do, don't they?
I want to bring in Kaylee's sister now, Olivia. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Olivia. You know, I remember from when we first started communicating, when all of this began, you told me that you believed that this was going to be a stranger who came into the house. And according to the police, you know, you were right the way that all of this played out. But what did you think when you first learned that Brian Kohberger was the suspect?
I think we always presume, you know, innocence. I don't think it really hit me until the affidavit was released and I was able to kind of read that and process that. And then you not only have a name and a face, but, you know, the beginnings of a case against him.
You have been working so hard behind the scenes, and I don't think a lot of people realize that because in many ways your dad has sort of been the face of the family. But since the beginning, you've been digging into this and trying to find leads and sending things to the police. And you told me that, you know, you didn't feel like you would be able to really grieve until there was an arrest made. Do you feel like now you're able to do that?
I think my family as well as myself are starting to get there. And it's kind of an odd time to do that, being that we still have such a long road ahead of us. But the relief that we all felt having a suspect in custody was, it was like, I can't even describe it. Like the weight of the world was lifted from our shoulders.
The court process now, though, I mean, that's, your dad has told me that can be overwhelming to think about, the fact that you guys are going to have to be in court. Do you plan to be at the hearings?
Yeah, every single one.
One thing back to the affidavit that I think a lot of people were surprised by was the fact that one of the roommates was awake when the killer walked by, and that the 911 call wasn't made until hours and hours later. Do you know any more about why that might be?
I don't have any other information for that. I do know Dylan is really young, and she was probably really, really scared. And until we have any more information, I think everyone should stop passing judgments, because you don't know what you would do in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's people online, obviously, it's totally inappropriate at this point. And you're right, no one knows how they would handle a situation like that or what was really happening. I mean, we only know what's in the probable cause so far. Is there anything you've learned that connects Kohberger to any of the victims here? Last I talked to your dad, he said the family was looking for connections, but there wasn't anything really apparent at this point.
Yeah, I think we're still going to keep looking. I've had a lot of people reach out with, Instagram posts or even a Spotify or lots of connections that they've been able to find. And those are super valuable. All of those go over to, the Moscow Police Department, as well as the Idaho State Police and the FBI, because nothing is insignificant at this point, and everything is being looked through.
There's this feeling that many have shared that perhaps Kohberger was watching the interviews, was in the Facebook groups, was on Twitter. Do you get a sense that that might be the case, that he was almost watching all of this as it played out?
I do. A lot of that comes from the fact that he had visited the home so many times before, late at night, early hours. He's presented this pattern of behavior. He went back to the home the morning of before police had been called, I think to see if his circus, so to say, had started to unfold. And I think that he would not have been able to refrain from engaging with the online communities, the theories, the conspiracies, and everything in between.
How did you first find out, Olivia, that there was an arrest?
My mom actually told me. I had been staying at her house. Me and my husband were upstairs, and she came up the stairs. It was probably around 11 o'clock at night, the day before the arrest had been made. At the time, we didn't know what state, and we didn't even have a name. We just knew that a suspect was in custody.
And what was your reaction when you were able to read through? I think I was texting you. I was in line in court trying to read the affidavit on my phone. What was your reaction when you were first able to read through all of it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that that's been the hardest part of this, is to sit back and look at the totality of it. When my sister was FaceTiming me about a new egg bites recipe, he was planning his next visit to the home. And that's really difficult. It's really difficult not to wish that you had done more, wish that you had known more. But it's just the first step. A lot more evidence will come out. And I'm confident that Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, and the FBI have the right person. And I thank them from the very bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I had never really thought about it that way. When you go through the timeline and the affidavit and see all the dates of when the cell phones pinged, you can actually go back. And I know you talk to your sister every day. You can actually go back and think of your conversations from those specific times.
Yeah, the August 21st date, I can go back and remember the conversation that I had with Kaylee that day, and how normal everything was, and the fact that we had no idea. She had no idea. I had no idea that true evil was genuinely watching them.
So this is certainly something that your family never envisioned that you would be going through. But I think what's so amazing about you guys is you're already trying to turn this tragedy into good in some way. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you're in the early stages of perhaps setting up a foundation to remember Kaylee, but tell me about your family's plans going in that direction.
Yeah, so from the beginning, we've definitely wanted to set up something that's Kaylee and Maddie's legacy going.
You know, I want to mention something real quick as we're watching this. You remember how Steve said that investigators asked him to kind of slow down because he was going way ahead of them? They were on the, quote, same track, but they needed him to slow down because he was getting too far ahead of them, and they needed to dot their I's and cross their T's. And this is what's crazy. She says right here, right? It just popped in my head. She said a couple minutes ago that they're getting ready to go talk to a couple people, right?
Released, and I was able to kind of read that and process that, and then you not only have a name and a face, but the beginnings of a case against him.
You have been working so hard behind the scenes, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, because in many ways your dad is sort of been the face of the family. But since the beginning, you've been digging into this and trying to find leads and sending things to the police. And you told me that you didn't feel like you would be able to really grieve until there was an arrest made. Do you feel like now you're able to do that?
I think my family as well as myself are starting to get there. And it's kind of an odd time to do that, being that we still have such a long road ahead of us. But the relief that we all felt having a suspect in custody was, it was like, I can't even describe it. Like the weight of the world was lifted from our shoulders.
The court process now, though, I mean, that's, your dad has told me that can be overwhelming to think about, the fact that you guys are going to have to be in court. Do you plan to be at the hearings?
Yeah, every single one.
One thing back to the affidavit that I think a lot of people were surprised by was the fact that one of their roommates was awake when the killer walked by, and that the 911 call wasn't made until hours and hours later. Do you know any more about why that might be?
I don't have any other information for that. I do know Dylan is really young, and she was probably really, really scared. And until we have any more information, I think everyone should stop passing judgments, because you don't know what you would do in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's people online, obviously, it's totally inappropriate at this point. And you're right, no one knows how they would handle a situation like that or what was really happening. I mean, we only know what's in the probable cause so far. Is there anything you've learned that connects Kohberger to any of the victims here? Last I talked to your dad, he said the family was looking for connections, but there wasn't anything really apparent at this point.
Yeah, I think we're still going to keep looking. I've had a lot of people reach out with, Instagram posts or even a Spotify, or lots of connections that they've been able to find. And those are super valuable. All of those go over to, the Moscow Police Department, as well as the Idaho State Police and the FBI, because nothing is insignificant at this point, and everything is being looked through.
There's this feeling that many have shared that perhaps Kohberger was
Did she say it earlier or something? I could have sworn
watching the interviews, was in the Facebook groups, was on Twitter. Do you get a sense that that might be the case, that he was almost watching all of this as it played out?
I do. A lot of that comes from the fact that he had visited the home so many times before, late at night, early hours. He's presented this pattern of behavior. He went back to the home the morning of, before police had been called, I think to see if his circus, so to say, had started to unfold. And I think that he would not have been able to refrain from engaging with the online communities, the theories, the conspiracies, and everything in between.
How did you first find out, Olivia, that there was an arrest?
My mom actually told me. I had been staying at her house. Me and my husband were upstairs, and she came up the stairs. It was probably around 11 o'clock at night, the day before the arrest had been made. At the time, we didn't know what state, and we didn't even have a name. We just knew that a suspect was in custody.
And what was your reaction when you were able to read through? I think I was texting you. I was in line in court trying to read the affidavit on my phone. What was your reaction when you were first able to read through all of it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that that's been the hardest part of this, is to sit back and look at the totality of it. When my sister was FaceTiming me about a new egg bites recipe, he was planning his next visit to the home. And that's really difficult. It's really difficult not to wish that you had done more, wish that you had known more. But it's just the first step. A lot more evidence will come out. And I'm confident that Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, and the FBI have the right person. And I thank them from the very bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I had never really thought about it that way. When you go through the timeline and the affidavit and see all the dates of when the cell phones pinged, you can actually go back. And I know you talk to your sister every day. You can actually go back and think of your conversations from those specific times.
Yeah, you know, the August 21st date, I can go back and remember the conversation that I had with Kaylee that day, and how normal everything was, and the fact that we had no idea. She had no idea. I had no idea that true evil was genuinely watching them.
So this is certainly something that your family never envisioned that you would be going through. But I think what's so amazing about you guys is you're already trying to turn this tragedy into good in some way. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you're in the early stages of perhaps setting up a foundation to remember Kaylee, but tell me about your family's plans going in that direction.
Yeah, so from the beginning, we've definitely wanted to set up something that's Kaylee and Maddie's legacy going forward. But for, up until there was an arrest made, we weren't really sure what that meant, what exactly we were standing for and standing against. And now that we are starting to be able to put some of those pieces together, we're really, I guess, excited. I don't know if that's the right word, to be able to set up a foundation or a nonprofit or something in the girls' honor in some way, to be able to help other families like us the best way that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. And we'll, of course, want to share that information. And I know people want to know how they can help. Olivia, I don't think people realize, you've got kids, you're pregnant. You have in many ways been the backbone for your family behind the scenes. You've been very, very strong. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, she tried
The question really is why?
For being with us tonight, Olivia. I remember from when we first started communicating, when all of this began, you told me that you believed that this was going to be a stranger who came into the house. And according to the police, you were right the way that all of this played out. But what did you think when you first learned that Brian Kohberger was the suspect?
I think we always presume, innocence. I don't think it really hit me until the affidavit was released, and I was able to kind of read that and process that. And then you not only have a name and a face, but, the beginnings of a case against him.
You have been working so hard behind the scenes, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, because in many ways your dad has sort of been the face of the family. But since the beginning, you've been digging into this and trying to find leads and sending things to the police. And you told me that, you didn't feel like you would be able to really grieve until there was.
I thought somewhere they said that they were going to talk to a couple people. Maybe I didn't. I could have swore they said something like that.
Get heroin until probably a couple of days afterwards.
His demeanor.
I did notice that he became a little chattier. He became a little more animated.
And what fascinated him most. Plus, a retired FBI agent spent weeks analyzing the case, why he's focusing on how Kohberger may have been trying to cover up the crimes, and why he says the knife could be something that helps the defense. Welcome back. We are live tonight in Moscow, Idaho. For 47 days, police were tight-lipped about what happened inside this house, giving basically no information about a suspect or even a person of interest. But what we didn't know was that they had someone in their sights nearly the entire time. Brian Kohberger, a criminology student in neighboring Pullman, Washington. And as we dig into...
For a couple weeks. For a couple weeks, entire time.
What we know about him, some of the pieces to this puzzle start to come together even more.
The entire time.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zena, Madison, and Kaylee.
Brian Kohberger, a criminology student, now one of America's most notorious inmates. He grew up in Pennsylvania. He attended high school in the area near the Poconos Mountains. A former friend telling News Nation's Chris Cuomo that Brian was bullied as a teenager.
He was always good to me. Now, over the years, that has changed. I know going into his senior year, he lost a lot of weight. It was then I hear that he might have become the bully.
She also claims Brian had a drug problem.
And you had experience with him using you to try to get drugs, right?
Yes, he did use me, and I didn't know at the time that he was using me to drive him to get heroin until probably a couple of days afterwards.
An old running partner says when he heard about the arrest, he was shocked.
I looked at the picture and I couldn't believe who it was. It was Brian Kohberger. I would text him like, hey, you want to go for a run? We'd go for 6-7 mile runs at night.
Brian Kohberger.
Kohberger got his bachelor's degree here at DeSales University back in 2020 and then a
We went out there. It's beautiful out there. I need to see something. Trying to view the details here. Let's see. Quick fact. What's the frickin' population here? It doesn't even give you a population. Hold on. I gotta... Usually Google Maps gives you the population. Okay. All right. This is something you guys gotta see. Okay. These people right here. Look. These people right here. These people right here. These people that know Kohberger. $211 is their population. No wonder people are gonna fucking say something. They ain't never had a camera crew come in their fucking town. Of course. People know him are gonna say something. 15 fucking minutes of fame, or 15 hours, or 15 days, or 15 weeks, or 15 months. Oh man, everybody knows Koberger. It's
as a teenager.
He was always good to me.
Woo! 211.
Now,
Whoa.
over the
Everybody
years,
wants
that
to
has
say
changed.
something.
I know going into his senior year,
Listen
he
to
lost
it.
a lot of weight.
Tweet, 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 tweet. Bad stuff, good stuff, bad stuff, good stuff. Tweet, 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 tweet. Oh, hell no. I can't do it. The aunt, the high school buddy, I can't do it. I can't do
I hear
it.
that he might have become a
Can't
bully.
do it.
She also claims Brian had a drug problem.
Tweet, tweet.
And you had experience with him using you to try to get drugs, right?
Yes, he did use me, and I didn't know at the time that he was using me to drive him to get heroin until probably a couple of days afterwards.
An old running partner says when he heard about the arrest, he was shocked.
I looked at the picture and I couldn't believe who it was. It was Brian Koberger.
That one motherfucking Exxon gas station in town, baby. That's the hot spot right there. That's the hot spot right there. Everybody goes to Exxon on a Friday night, baby.
I would text him like, hey, you want to go for a run?
Everybody
We go for
goes
6,
to
7 mile
Exxon
runs
on a
at
Friday
night.
Shit.
Brian Koberger.
Koberger got his bachelor's degree here at DeSales University back in 2020 and then a master's degree from their criminal justice program. A spokeswoman for the school says they are absolutely distraught by what is happening. Something really interesting. There is a world-renowned forensic psychology professor who works here who reportedly actually taught Koberger.
Joining me tonight is Dr. Catherine Ramsland. She is the forensic psychologist.
Dr. Catherine Ramsland, professor, consultant, and most famous for her in-depth interviews with Dennis Rader, known as the BTK killer.
Man.
He asked me to.
Doesn't it have a ring to it? Exxon on a Friday night. Doesn't it have a cool ring to it? Exxon on a Friday night.
Solve a series of codes, and I was willing to pass the test.
Dr. Ramsland wrote his autobiography, and she talked about it on News Nation last year with
Friday
Marty
night,
Hughes.
He obviously liked the attention and the publicity then, and perhaps he still does now. Why give him a voice and a platform to share his thoughts and experiences?
I did this project.
Yo, I'm going to tell you right now. I have this. Hopefully, I still have it. Because it's an episode I did way back in the day. That I did an episode on Dr. Catherine Ramsland. Yeah, here it is right here. Holy shit. Episode 101, everybody. Oh, wow. This is old fucking CJ right here. Episode 101. Right there. Episode. That's some old fucking CJ right there. So I apologize in advance if my presentation is shit. Because, you know, hey. I've learned as I went. I had no help from nobody. I've done all this shit on my own. Created all this shit on my own. I just did whatever platform I don't know. So, hey. There you go. Episode 101. I did an episode on Catherine Ramsland. It is freaking nuts. Freaking nuts. All the shit that she's into. Seriously. You don't even have to watch the show. You can if you want to. But if you look up Catherine Ramsland and you research a little bit, you know, you get your sleuthing boots on. Get them sleuthing boots on. You'll see. She's into some fucking weird ass shit. Weird ass shit.
Because I wanted to benefit law enforcement, criminal justice, and psychology. And we want to learn about the early red flags in the life of someone like this who doesn't have the typical serial killer
background.
Dr. Ramsland tells us she's not making any comments about Koberger or the case at this time.
My first reaction was just like my stomach churned.
But Dennis Rader's daughter, telling News Nation, the revelation concerned her.
Do you think he may have had any sort of communication with your father?
Knowing how personally connected Ramsland is to my father, I would not be surprised if Koberger had at least tried to write my father.
Koberger also worked part-time as security at his old high school. After getting his master's, he moved to Pullman, becoming a PhD candidate and teaching assistant at Washington State University, just across the border from Idaho.
According to Vinny from earlier, he's from Pullman. What's he even doing in Moscow? Vinny
lived in an on-campus apartment. What's he doing? The affidavit for arrest claims Koberger applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in 2022, saying in his essay he was interested in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. He also posted a survey on Reddit asking for volunteers for a research study where he was studying the criminal mind. He wanted to know about the emotional and psychological considerations for people who had been convicted of crimes, asking questions like, why did you choose that victim? What was the first move they made? How did you leave?
And also, it's called something that they already use. It's a generic questionnaire from an agency. I'll just put it that way. It's a questionnaire from an agency. Oh my gosh.
And to make absolutely sure you understood that he was small.
A former classmate giving insight into Koberger's demeanor.
Former classmate. X-Zone on a Friday night, baby. X-Zone on a Friday night.
Before winter break.
I did notice that he became a little chattier. He became a little more animated.
Mostly
what I noticed though,
night,
is he was always showing up a little late, and he was always showing up with a cup of coffee in hand. He seems like he was more exhausted.
Koberger has not entered his plea yet. The father of victim Kaylee Gonzalez saying this about seeing the man accused of killing his daughter for the first time.
I expected him to be a bigger monster and more intimidating.
I mean, I'm like, this is the guy?
Sitting in the county jail, according to the sheriff, they're trying to accommodate his vegan diet. The reporter who interviewed Koberger's aunt telling News Nation's Ashley Banfield about Koberger's so-called food fetish.
She said,
Gonzalez saying this about.
Why is it? Oh my gosh. This frickin' StreamYard, man. Did you guys, is this the same aunt? Is this the same aunt that just came out and said something? Did you guys hear this?
He became a little more animated. Mostly what I noticed, though, is he was always showing up a little late, and he was always showing up with a cup of coffee in hand. He seemed like he was more exhausted.
Koberger has not entered his plea yet. The father of victim Kaylee Gonzalez saying this about seeing the man accused of killing his daughter for the first time.
I expected him to be a bigger monster and more intimidating.
I mean, I'm like, this is the guy?
They expected him to be a
Sitting
bigger
in the county
monster.
jail, according to the sheriff.
They were like, this is the guy? Shocked. But is this the aunt that just came out and said something like recently here?
They're trying to accommodate his vegan diet.
Listen.
The reporter who interviewed Koberger's aunt telling News Nation's Ashley Banfield about Kohberger's so-called food fetish.
We remember the food
it went
fetish.
beyond being vegan. He required his aunt and uncle to buy brand new pots and pans for him to eat out of because he refused to eat from anything that had meat ever cooked in it. And she said it seemed to be an OCD type of situation.
It's got to be her. But that's before the divorce, no? Is that why they... Is this before the divorce?
The guy sitting in the county jail. According to the sheriff, they're trying to accommodate his vegan diet. The reporter who interviewed Kohberger's aunt telling News Nation's Ashley Banfield,
I mean, I remember them saying this back then. I didn't remember. I must have just blanked it out about it being the aunt. Wow.
About Kohberger's so-called food fetish.
She said it went beyond being vegan. He required his aunt and uncle to buy brand new pots and pans for him to eat out of because he refused to eat from anything that had meat ever cooked in it. And she said it seemed to be an OCD type of situation.
That sounds to me like it's the same aunt that just said something recently. The whole food fetish thing. Jeez. Please hit the like if you haven't yet. It's the free way to help out. It's got to be the same aunt. That's the same kind of shit. Talking about the mental health, remember? She brought up mental health recently. Brought up mental health right here. Her and her husband had to buy new plates. I think it is the same aunt. What do you guys think? Wow. That's why I'm loving going through these fresh notes, old notes episodes, going through little things here and there that we just ain't seen in a long time. Little shit like that.
Kohberger's immediate family saying in a statement, "We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family, we will love and support our son and brother. We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions." For Kaylee's family, they say they now have a clear picture of what justice looks like.
Justice doesn't have a room where you can read books and you can go to school and you can have 3 meals and you can have your vegan diet. To me, that's not justice. Justice is when you leave the planet and the whole world is able to rejoice and be glad that you are not there.
Okay, so there is still so much left to uncover about this investigation, the evidence and the motive. We are live tonight from Moscow, Idaho. Up next, the bombshell that one of the surviving roommates saw the killer. Coming up, a retired FBI agent with a theory on why he may have spared her life. Plus, the tool that could eliminate unsolved murders once and for all. Welcome back to this News Nation special report on the Idaho murder mystery, live from Moscow. The arrest affidavit for this case revealed so much that we did not know, 18 pages worth. But that's only just a piece of this investigation. The minimum as some experts we talked to say. Some of it will come out in a potential trial. Other parts will have to lean on
the minimum.
The tool that could eliminate unsolved murders once and for all.
What?
Welcome back to this News Nation special report on the Idaho murder mystery, live from Moscow. The arrest affidavit for this case revealed so much that we did not know, 18 pages worth. But that's only just a piece of this investigation, the minimum, as some experts we talked to say. Some of it will come out in a potential trial. Other parts will have to lean on some of our experts to basically.
Oh, so they're saying that's just the absolute minimum. Well, yeah. Man, the way that they were just, it's no wonder. I mean, hell, I thought he was guilty as shit at this time, too.
Fill in the gaps until we find out more. And joining me now is retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Bobby, thank you so much for being with us. The first thing I want to ask you that has a lot of people puzzled is this surviving roommate who apparently saw the killer walk by. Do you think the killer saw her? And if so, why may he have spared her life?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, and I think he did see her, but looking at the affidavit with the phone records and where he was, I think he had a certain plan. There was a plan in place that he had for this house. So he was executing a plan as he thought it was going to go in his mind. Now, all of the times that people do this, things go wrong. He might have only planned on 2 victims and it turned out to be 4. I think that the rage that he had that was building in the days and weeks leading up to the murders,
right, rage.
I think all came out, and I think the opposite side of that rage is an adrenaline crash, and I think that
right, this shit was built up. Rage, the same shit that happened at the frickin' party. It wasn't a stranger that started the problem. And they were all supposed to keep quiet. What's up, Clyde? Great Pearl. What's up?
that after the 4th victim, it's entirely possible he crashed. He was simply so exhausted, and then you get kind of tunnel vision. He was looking to get out of that house as quickly as he could, and that the other 2 people downstairs were not part of his plan, and so he walked right by her to get out of the house. So I think it's entirely possible he was simply too exhausted, and it wasn't part of the plan that he had envisioned.
Yeah, so he's just gonna leave. It just makes no damn sense. It just makes, you're gonna do that and then leave 2 people.
One of the creepiest things about this for me when I read over the affidavit was that he is accused of coming back to the house. That's what the cell phone records indicate, around 9:15 in the morning after the murders. Is it possible? I mean, do you think he may have been going back to go back inside? Do you think he realized that he left the knife sheath there?
You know, it could be, but I don't think so. I think this is sometimes classic criminal behavior where they revisit the scene of the crime. I think he might have gone back there to see if there were
So he hung around in that little ass town for a half an hour before he decided to leave. So do you really think that if you committed that kind of crime, you're not only gonna wait 30 minutes after the crime's committed to even leave the little town, But then you're going to make another 50-some minute drive going down south, coming back up. So you're telling me after you commit this crime, you're going to be on a joyride for an hour and 20 minutes when you literally live 15 minutes away. I'm sorry. If you're going to do criminal acts, then you think like a criminal. And if you think like a criminal, that's stupid. It just makes no damn sense.
Ambulances or police cars. He probably expected the police to be there already.
There you go.
And I think he went back to look for police or what kind of activity was taking part at the house. Sometimes the thrill, we've seen people stand behind police lines at fires. Arsonists do this a lot. And so I think that he was driving by to see basically the fruits of his actions. If there were, there should have been by that time a lot of police activity and ambulance activity. So I think that might be, it's impossible to tell. This is all speculation on my part, but I think it's quite possible that he was going back there to expect to see a lot of police activity.
Yeah, and like you said, we hear that people like this get a very weird, strange thrill from things like that. Let's talk about these traffic stops in Indiana. There were the 2 stops, very suspicious. The FBI has come out and said that they didn't organize the stops. I mean, do you think it's possible that this was really just a coincidence that Kohberger and the dad got pulled over twice on the way back to Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's possible now.
Well, not only being exposed for that long, but you're going to tell me all them other towns, little teeny towns, some of them don't even have a stoplight. It's a flashing light in a 4-way street. So you're going to tell me that you're driving through. You're going to drive through them small-ass towns that probably have one fucking cop and probably have nobody driving through there between the hours of 3 and 5 in the frickin' morning. So if somebody does drive by, oh shit, whoa, what? Oh, shit, let me go check him out. Anybody knows that when you drive through small towns, what do? You follow the fucking speed limit to a T. You follow all the damn laws in them small motherfucking towns. So you're going to tell me that you're going to commit this crime as a criminal. You're going to commit this crime. And instead of going 15 minutes back home by the fucking airport, which you ain't going to be seeing that much, 15 minutes and you're at home base. And you're going to spend an hour and 20 minutes going down south through little teeny ass town after little teeny ass fucking town. And you're going to take not only a half an hour's worth of time of chances to be in Moscow still, but then you're going to take 50 some more minutes of time and chances for you to get busted, especially driving through all them little teeny ass fucking towns. How is it somebody was able to be that frickin' inept to... How do you go from looking like Joe Dirt to motherfucking Batman inside that property? I just don't understand. Because as soon as dude walked out the door, you're telling me he was fucking Joe Dirt with the mullet? Even up until he was doing his little Joe Dirt pull-up. And then as soon as he opened that door, whew, the fucking stealth suit came out. Nobody even knows how I left. And then as soon as you step foot back to Joe motherfucking Dirt until you got arrested. That sounds like a fucking Hollywood movie. That don't sound realistic. It sounds like a Hollywood movie. I just don't.
Now, I originally
don't
thought that it might have been orchestrated because it's an investigative technique that I myself used when I used to work for the mafia in New York City. We used to have the NYPD radio cars, the uniform patrol, pull them over to ID who was in the car and things like that. So I think, I thought originally that at least the first one was orchestrated, probably not the second one, because you never want to do two of these too close together because the suspect can raise their suspicion that the police are onto them. So initially I thought the first one, particularly because it was a sheriff, and the sheriffs don't usually do traffic enforcement on the interstates. That's usually the state troopers, which the second stop was a state trooper. So I think when the FBI, they have no reason to lie that they didn't orchestrate it. This is a perfectly valid and legal investigative tool. And they wouldn't want to jeopardize the case by lying about it afterwards and things. So I think that, that if they didn't orchestrate it, now it could have been orchestrated by the Idaho State Police. That's something that people have said, and that's perfectly possible. But I think right now it might be just really a really weird coincidence.
That's a fucking distance, man.
Yeah, crazy coincidence. But you mentioned it. I mean, if it made him suspicious, there's the reports that once he got to Pennsylvania, he had the gloves on. He was moving the trash from his parents' house to the neighbor's house. So that all certainly came into play. I want to ask you about the knife, because I have heard, according to sources, that one possible defense strategy here could be trying to say that knife will not match up to the wounds. Do you think that could possibly come into play at a trial?
Well, it could, and the defense could certainly make that allegation. There will be very detailed testimony by the medical examiners and by people that are experts in wound patterns with this knife. Now, normally, depending on the stab wound, but sometimes you can actually match the knife up right to the wound. In this case, if the wounds are too graphic, if they're too gross, if they were too much together, you may not be able to get the exact knife fit in. So it all depends on the wound pattern. But I anticipate you will have the medical examiner or coroner give expert testimony for the prosecution. The defense will probably have its own experts come in and make an allegation exactly the way you described. I don't know that will prevail, but it's something the defense, is certainly open to trying.
So they don't discuss motive at all in the probable cause affidavit, Bobby. Do you think they know a motive at this point and just aren't revealing it, or you think they're still looking?
I think they've got an idea of the motive, and they're looking for more evidence of that motive. Now, remember, to me as an investigator, motive was the least important thing I did. Because most murder statutes, you don't need to prove why somebody does it. My main thrust as an investigator was, who did this crime and how do I prove it? How do I help the prosecution get a conviction? The why of it, the who, what, when, where, and why, the why of it was always the least important for me, unless it led to other things in the investigation, unless it is to blunt a defense motion, a defense assertion that it was, self-defense or something like that. So I think that prosecutors always like a motive. They always like to tell the jury the story of why this happened, but the why certainly is not needed for a conviction. It's not required by a statute. Most murder statutes don't require the why, but I think they have an idea. But that's always the most nebulous part of a case like this, is the why of it, because quite frankly, there is no rational reason to do this. And when we find out the why, it will be very unsatisfying.
Interesting. I only have about 15 seconds left. Real quick.
Yeah, dude.
They say they don't have the murder weapon. They may have found it and just not told us yet, but can they use...
I like that background, though. That's pretty neat looking. I like that.
The cell phone records to go back, follow his drive, and look for the knife?
mean, they could. They could. It's a very long search, but there's a lot of area to search. I don't know if they're already searching or not, but they don't need the knife for a conviction, but it would be very, very nice to have.
Okay. Interesting. Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, coming up next, the key evidence and why getting a conviction is not always a sure thing. We're going to talk about it. We are live tonight in Moscow, Idaho. Still ahead, the fascinating and powerful world of DNA.
There is no reason we need to have serial killers.
How it changed the game for investigators in Moscow and for others all across the country. Plus, how rock solid is the Idaho case in a courtroom? So beside car movements and cell phone pings, what could perhaps be the most important element of this case is if it goes to trial is going to be DNA. We now know crime scene technicians expertly located evidence from the suspect at the scene. We asked News Nation's Nancy Liu to look into the different ways DNA is used in crime fighting.
Brian, it's a technique called investigative genetic genealogy. It is relatively new, and it is solving cases at an incredible clip. DNA started cracking cases in the 80s. Tommy Lee Andrews, the nation's very first conviction, going to prison for rape after Central Florida investigators used a lab paternity test advertised with a "wearing his daddy's jeans" slogan.
He's as despicable looking as I thought.
Fast forward to 2018. The Golden State Killer left behind DNA for decades, but the rapist and murderer, a police officer, had no DNA in the system. Then police turned to emerging genetic genealogy websites to connect to Joseph DeAngelo's relatives.
It's important to understand that we don't solve the case. We provide them the name of a person that most likely left the DNA.
Denver's former district attorney Mitch Morrissey co-founded United Data Connect after more than 3 decades as a prosecutor. He credits investigative genetic genealogy with an explosion of cold case arrests.
I've seen police officers bust tables in pizza restaurants and gotten saliva off of pizza and off of forks and that kind of thing.
That's how agents in Pennsylvania got a critical DNA match in the Moscow murders, scooping a piece of trash from the Koberger family home in late December, sending it to the Idaho State Crime Lab. Technicians comparing that to a sample of a single source male's DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. Recording a match with Brian Koberger's father, ostensibly using tried and true technology, the equivalent of the paternity test that convicted Tommy Lee Andrews.
We're working with second, third, fourth, fifth cousins and beyond.
Investigative genetic genealogist Cece Moore shows just how far the science has come, recently cracking the Honolulu murder of Nancy Anderson after 50 years. Well-preserved DNA got tested again more thoroughly, finding a retired deputy attorney general in Nevada. Similar to the Idaho case, police getting a DNA sample from his son before moving in to make the arrest.
That looks just like your mother.
Just last month, DNA helped a family reunite with Melissa Highsmith, who was abducted by a babysitter 51 years ago.
And I just started weeping and crying, and my daughters were crying, "She's alive, she's alive."
Genealogists stress there are only 2 companies sharing DNA profiles with law enforcement, and all those people have opted in.
It's a big misconception out there that we're able to use Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. They have over 40 million people in them. If we could use those databases, these cases would take an hour.
Cases where DNA is significant. 90% of the victims are women. The 10% that are left, about 9.5 are kids. So this is a science that we then add genealogy to when DNA hasn't been able to give us an answer that solves crimes against women and children.
In 4 short years, this DNA technique cracked.
That's a sad stat right there. Did he just say 90% are women, and out of the 10% that are left, 9.5% are children?
Helped a family reunite with Melissa Highsmith, who was abducted by a babysitter 51 years ago.
And I just started weeping and crying, and my
Did they-
daughters were crying.
is that
"She's
really
alive,
true?
she's alive."
Genealogists stress there are only 2 companies sharing DNA profiles with law enforcement, and all those people have opted in.
It's a big misconception out there that we're able to use Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. They have over 40 million people in them. If we could use those databases, these cases would take an hour.
Cases where DNA is significant, 90% of the victims are women. The 10% that are left, about 9.5 are kids. So
That's freaking crazy. 90% are women, and out of the 10%, 9.5 are freaking children. My gosh. That's why I always tell you ladies to be safe.
this is the science that we then add genealogy to when DNA hasn't been able to give us an answer that solves crimes against women and children.
Wow.
In 4 short years, this DNA technique cracking around 400 violent crimes, mostly cold cases, an urgent push now on to put new killers in its crosshairs.
There is no reason we need to have serial killers, Ted Bundy types, serial rapists, because we can identify them after the first violent crime now.
In this case, science already vetted in courtrooms across the country, helping to reel in the suspected killer of 4 college kids.
They were able to quickly identify him, get him into custody. These hopefully were his only victims.
The FBI now has its own investigative genealogy capabilities. Most state crime
What?
new killers in its crosshairs.
There is no reason we need to have serial killers, Ted Bundy types, serial rapists, because we can identify them after the first violent crime now.
In this case, science already vetted in courtrooms across the country, helping to reel in the suspected killer of 4 college kids.
They were able to quickly identify him, get him into custody. These hopefully were his only victims.
The FBI now has its own investigative genealogy capabilities. Most state crime labs contract that work out to private companies. Brian?
The defense team is already hard at work trying to poke holes in the case. We're going to dive into that part of the story coming up next. We are live from Moscow, Idaho.
Next, meticulous planning.
Basically, a hell of a lot of women, even with children involved. It's just an addition onto it. That's the crazy part.
And countless steps to make this case a slam dunk.
You don't want the slightest thing to happen.
There's the search.
Is it enough to get a conviction?
The house in Moscow was once a single crime scene that seemed a Herculean task to process. It has now evolved to forensic investigations in 2 additional states, the processing of a car, and so much more happening behind the scenes. We asked News Nation's Robert Sherman to look into all of the components of forensics and the judicial process that have to go right to actually win a conviction. It's such an important part of all of this. And Robert joins us now from the crime scene in Moscow tonight. Robert.
Good evening to you, Brian. And the goal for law enforcement at this point can be summed up in 2 words: investigation, perfection.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been.
Investigation. I gotta wait for frickin' StreamYard, man. Come on, StreamYard. Come on, StreamYard. That's right, Jethro. StreamYard can, like, go any freaking time here. I don't know what its problem is.
Robert joins us now from the crime
2
scene
words
in Moscow tonight. Robert.
2 words.
Good evening to you, Brian. And the goal for law enforcement at this point can be summed up in 2 words: investigation, perfection.
Ooh, it was, wasn't it?
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
From forensics in Idaho
Fucking StreamYard.
to pre-dawn capture in Pennsylvania.
Unit was on the door. Force was used for evening search warrants.
Police, prosecutors, and the courts working hard to bring their A game.
And you don't want the slightest thing to happen.
Retired FBI agent Kathy Guider isn't surprised to see top-notch investigative techniques like 3D imaging used in the processing of the King Road murder scene. And
oh yeah, we went over that a few times.
crime tech spending more than 12 hours at Brian Kohberger's Pullman, Washington apartment, carting off a computer tower and more. Also a routine part of a well-executed law enforcement script.
Wouldn't you expect them to take a tower and all this other stuff? Of course they would. Yeah, you know, if that's what...
Every location that comes up, now you have more evidence teams out there, whether it's digital evidence, communication being part of that, whether it's fingerprints, shoe prints, all the different technologies out there. Very, very time consuming.
The investigation, evidence processing, even search warrants and Miranda rights must be perfect or the defense can pounce.
The one thing that I'm not seeing in this arrest affidavit is a motive for this crime. Did Mr. Kohberger know these victims?
Say what, lady? What?
And Miranda rights must be perfect or the defense can pounce.
The one thing that I'm not seeing in this arrest affidavit is a motive for this crime.
Whoa!
Did Mr. Kohberger know these victims?
Isn't that what we've all been asking? What's the frickin' motive, yo?
If not, the defense is really going to be drilling in on that.
Federal criminal defense attorney Tama Cudman looked over the gag order now covering the case. It's an extensive one, she says, and necessary for both the defense and the prosecution.
To the extent that any information is being leaked into the jury, they may be tainted. And if you want to have a fair trial...
That's why I'm saying it's so important what the hell we put out there. Or what we don't.
We have to protect them from these kinds of leaks.
What might seem like missteps, like the beginning of
Come on,
hazardous material
StreamYard.
cleaning of the
Damn,
house
man.
that abruptly stopped.
But the sheeting has come down.
We'll get scrutiny for potentially damaging Kohberger's due process.
Could be for the defense counsel, could be that they just want to hold it for a little bit.
We call that spoliation of the evidence in criminal defense lingo, and that is going to most certainly be an issue.
Spoliation. I like that. Spoliation. Or they just let it sit there.
Crime scene experts spent most of Tuesday in and out of the home. Hired by the defense, this forensic
crime of
specialist is
rage.
carrying 3D imaging
Where's the
technology,
rage?
also used by detectives.
Where's the rage?
He also specializes in crime scene reconstructions and blood pattern analysis. His career splitting nearly equal time testifying for and against criminal suspects.
Reporting.
How y'all doing today?
The 2 Indiana traffic stops of suspect Kohberger and his dad are of little surprise to retired Agent Guider.
You've got the people that are going to, look just at the linguistics of what did he say, why did he say it at that particular time. You are combing every part of that vehicle, seats, under the seats, the floor mats.
Okay, listen to all
Retired
this.
Agent Guider.
You've got the people that are going to, look
Listen to all
just
this
at the
again.
linguistics of what did he say, why did he say it at that particular time. You are combing every part of that vehicle, seats,
Every frickin' part of the vehicle, yo.
under the seats, the floor mats, every little piece is being evaluated for the potential evidence.
A former member of an FBI mobile surveillance team. She notes the deputies talking to verification of who's behind the wheel, but it's the car and what it might hold that is just as intriguing.
I would caution everyone, most certainly we have enough information and evidence for probable cause to arrest, but that does not mean that we have enough evidence for proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Everything has to be meticulous from this point on.
A swirl of DNA evidence, digital data, and investigative procedure that must be spot on so that justice can be served for 4 young lives.
This whole community and nation was desperate for speedy answers, and at times it seemed as though this case might never be solved. But we now know less than 2 weeks after those murders took place, Moscow police was asking other law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for that white Hyundai Elantra. A cautious investigation yielding this arrest, Brian.
Thank you, Robert. We are staying centered on the victims and their families as we continue with this special live from Moscow, Idaho.
Coming up next, how you can help honor the memories of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana.
Oh, that was a cool picture I haven't seen for a...
Thank you, Robert. We are staying centered on the victims and their families as we continue with this special
That's
live
a cool picture.
from Moscow, Idaho.
Coming up next, how you can help honor the memories of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana.
Welcome back. It has been 8 weeks since the murders here in Moscow, Idaho, since 4 families' lives changed forever. And this town, really a beautiful, quaint, quiet, normally safe college town, was thrust into the national spotlight. And even Brian Koberger's family, now in a situation that they likely never imagined they would be in. We will continue to follow the court process and every new detail we can confirm, not rumors or speculation, just only the facts. But throughout, we must all be mindful of the families. Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie's parents, brothers, sisters, and friends. There are things you can do to help. Xana's family has set up a scholarship endowment at the University of Idaho. Ethan's fraternity, Sigma Chi, also has a memorial scholarship fund, and Kaylee and Maddie's family, as you heard, they are in the process of setting up a foundation to try and make some good out of this awful, awful tragedy. We will continue to be here. We will be in the courtroom Thursday covering this case.
That was an interesting episode. Had a lot of good stuff in it. There's the link if you want to save it for your playlist. Couple interesting things in there, especially with what they were saying too. It's like, yo, maybe in the beginning of the episode when Vinny was so, I haven't seen Vinny like that. I didn't remember Vinny being like that, but damn, man. Vinny was smoking in the beginning of the episode, smoking the wrong shit. Smoking the wrong shit, but he was smoking. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out on this quick last-minute live. I just wanted to hang out with you guys for a little bit. Got some more work to do tomorrow. Got some stuff coming up. Got some surprises coming up. But I will be on tomorrow night for sure. I might get on in the afternoon, but it's probably just going to be a night show tomorrow as well. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your company, your conversation. Please hit the like if you haven't yet. It's the free way. See you tomorrow. Appreciate you guys.